Have you ever had one of those brilliant research ideas, but then you just stopped because you had no idea where to even begin? Well, today we're laying out the map for you. We're going to walk through a complete toolkit, 9 essential courses, that will take you from that first little spark all the way to making a real, tangible impact.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? You get that spark, that idea that feels like it could change everything. But then you look at the path forward, and it just seems like this huge, intimidating mountain. And the question is always the same. Where do you even start the climb? So, here's our roadmap. We're going to break this whole journey down into 4 key stages. First up, we're building a rock-solid foundation. Then, we'll get into choosing the right tools for the job. After that, it's all about turning that raw data into something meaningful. And finally, the last, crucial step, sharing what you found with real impact.
You know, every great research project, it doesn't start with collecting data. It starts with a blueprint. This is the foundation stage, and trust me, getting this right is the absolute best way to avoid a total disaster down the line. It's like pouring the concrete for a house before you try to put up the walls.
And this foundation, it really rests on 2 main pillars. First, you've just got to understand the basic principles of research methods. And second, you have to design a super clear, logical plan for your project. These aren't just, suggestions, they are the absolute essential first steps.
And that brings us to our first 2 courses. Think of the University of London's Understanding Research Methods as your vocabulary lesson. It literally teaches you the language of research. Then, the Research Design course from the University of North Texas helps you use that new vocabulary to write the first chapter, a clear, actionable plan for your entire project.
All right, so you've got your blueprint in hand. Now it's time to actually pick up your tools and start building. This next phase is all about gathering your evidence, the raw materials you're going to use for your discovery.
So every researcher hits this fork in the road. Are you after the rich, human stories that numbers just can't capture? The deep conversations you see on the left? That's your qualitative research. Or do you need the hard data, the cold, hard facts you can put in charts and graphs to prove a hypothesis? That's quantitative. The University of Amsterdam has some fantastic courses that help you master whichever path you choose.
So you've gone out and gathered all your evidence. Awesome. But now comes the next big challenge. What in the world does it all mean? Because data by itself is really just noise. It's not until you can interpret it that it turns into actual knowledge.
To really find the meaning, you need context first. You can't just jump into a conversation without knowing what's already been said, right? That's exactly what a systematic review is for. It's a super rigorous, structured way of mapping out all the research that already exists on your topic. The course from Johns Hopkins teaches you this vital skill, making sure your work is actually adding something new to the conversation.
Man, this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's the whole point of the next course, Statistical Inference, also from Johns Hopkins. See, it's not just about running some tests and getting a number. It's about developing a deep, almost intuitive feel for what your data is actually telling you. And that, right there, that's the difference between just being a technician and being a true researcher.
And that brings us to our final and, maybe the most important stage of all. Research isn't really finished when the analysis is done. It's only complete when it's been shared effectively and actually reaches the world.
I absolutely love this quote. It just perfectly captures the goal of Stanford's Writing in the Sciences course. The source material actually calls this one a personal favorite, and I can totally see why. It teaches you to stop thinking about writing a dry lab report and start thinking like a storyteller, transforming your data into a narrative that people will actually want to read.
But compelling storytelling is just one piece of the puzzle. This slide really shows you the complete communications toolkit. So, alongside Stanford's course on narrative, you need precision. That's where UC Irvine's academic English course is perfect. It helps you sharpen your writing so it's crystal clear. And finally, you need a strategy. And that brings us to the Research for Impact course from the University of Cape Town.
Okay, so let's just imagine for a second. You've done all the work. You've spent months, maybe even years on your project. The result? This massive pile of paper, your finished manuscript. And then you send it out into the world. It somehow survives the brutal process of peer review, and finally, congratulations. It's officially published. You've basically reached the traditional peak of academic success.
So you've checked all the boxes. You did everything you were supposed to do. But here's the really tough question you have to ask yourself. Does it actually matter? To anyone outside of a tiny little bubble of specialists? Answering that question, well, that's the entire reason the Research for Impact course exists. It gives you that final critical skill, learning the strategies to break your findings out of that academic journal and turn them into real-world change. Influencing policy, improving lives, sparking innovation.
So there you have it. That's the roadmap. From a solid foundation all the way to real-world impact. You've got the toolkit now to take pretty much any idea from start to finish. So the only question left, and it's the most exciting one, is this. What story is your research going to tell?